Oh, Thomas, you and your friends and your situations and your multiple cannons. Talk about unexpected depth. I probably don't have to tell any of you guys that, but admittedly, even now, it's still a funny thought. There are so many stories, characters, unravelings, everything in this series, and today we'll be focusing on one of those specifically, characters. Now, as you could expect, some characters are constant, like, of course, Thomas, Gordon, Percy, Edward, And then there's characters that exist in their respective canons only, like Glenn or Neville. Some of my favorites exist in the oldest canon though, the Railway series. And there are many characters who never made it from the pages to the projectors. Today we'll learn a random fact about each of these. So strap in, there's, again, a lot of engines to talk about. Over 100? Over 100, actually. And I'm gonna say it right now, I'm skipping some because they're either not substantial or don't really have any substance. So, whoopee, let's jump in. Is it still over 100? This is gonna take forever. Alright, starting us off is 1020. Now, this engine appears very briefly in a single illustration, being helped by a young Toby. Now, kinda strangely, in the text it stated that 1020 is younger than Toby. But this doesn't really make any sense, as Toby was built in 1914, while J-15's 1020's class were built between 1883 and 1913, so yeah, that's odd. 10751. Now, this is a diesel who appears briefly taking an enthusiast train. Most people would assume 10751 to be this engine's number, but in actuality, this is a running code. It's unknown what the actual number to this engine is. It's assumed to fall in the range of 51951 to 51650, 87546 and 98462. I'm just gonna group these two together since they're basically interchangeable and we know little to nothing about them. We do know, according to Awdry himself, that apparently both of these engines were horrid. They also were probably scrapped. 8783. Well, apparently this guy got into a pretty serious accident at a level crossing in 1939, only to be rebuilt by Nigel Gresley and kept in immaculate condition. Until 1959, where it was scrapped. Man, this is gonna be a constant, isn't it? Ada, Jane, and Mabel, thank God no more numbers. Despite being Railway Series only characters, these three did receive pretty neat wooden railway models. Adams, or 488, is a tank engine who works on the Bluebell Railway. According to Stepney, Adams is a lovely engine who can stroll away with any load he is given. He also gets his name from his designer, a Sir William Adams. Agnes, Ruth, Lucy, Jemima, and Beatrice. These are all coaches on the Skarloey Railway. They also have a special disdain for Sir Handel, who often refers to them as cattle trucks. Alaric, he's a Coldie Fell native. All we really know about him is that he's nice and quiet. Probably pretty boring. Albert. Albert is a red tank engine who worked the Furness. He's mentioned to Edward by a coach named Victoria, while both are being mended at Crovan's Gate Works. She notes that Albert only ever had one accident. Albert's ultimate fate, however, is unknown. It's assumed he was probably scrapped. Alright, this video will be 2 hours if I don't simplify a little bit. Hold on. Albert Regaby. He was chairman for the NWR from 1913 to 1934. Alice and Mirabelle. These are two coaches' duck pulls, with both being saved from scrap, alongside Dulcie. Awdry. Yeah. Awdry is an elderly steam engine, a GSWR 403 class, and is the Reverend himself trainified. Nice. Barry. Barry is a cancelled RWS character, but exists pretty wholeheartedly in fan content. He's named after Barry Island, home to the scrapyard he was rescued from. Bear. Now, Bear is a personal favorite of mine. Similar to Duck, who gained his name from an apparent waddle, Bear gains his name through the growling sound his motor often makes, all around a very kind spirit. Big City Engine. Not gonna lie, if you're watching this, you probably know plenty about this guy. So, let's look at his take-and-play model. What a banger. The Blisters. These diesel twins help out on the Arlesdale Railway. They're named such due to apparent issues they have starting in cold weather. Bloomer. Bloomer is a very fancy engine, if you couldn't tell. And very deservingly, he has a model made by Awdry himself. Bluebell and Primrose. These engines work with Stepney at the Bluebell, all being in preservation. He mentions the two to Edward. Box Hill. Thomas apparently worked with this guy for the LBSC. The BR Diesels. Here we see a Class 52, Class 31, and even a Class 40. Not Bowler, or that Class 40, but still cool. The BR Steam Engines. These are the ones Percy tried to show off to, only for Henry to be a party pooper. They apparently idolize Percy though, and to be honest, they should. Smart guys. Captain Baxter. Another preservation dude who works with Stepney on the Bluebell. Catherine. She's Coldie's coach. Cora. She's an older style van who survived from the MSR to the Skarloey. Cromford. Another Bluebell local. Coldie. He tells very confusing stories, can never really tell if he's kidding or not. The Coldie Fell coaches. The same as Catherine, but for the other engines. You know, just not Catherine. Diesel 199. He's the notorious spam can, who's called that after a signalman threatens to cut him open like one. Diesel 31120. He's dead. Scrapped sometime in 1994. Oh, June 7th, actually. Oddly specific. Diesel 40125. Man, Class 40s don't do well on Sodor, do they? He goes face first through a wall. Bozo. Get him a revive. Duchess of Hamilton. One of many engines Thomas meets on a trip to the NRM, or National Railway Museum. His story is the exact same as the real locomotive, so feel free to look that up if you're interested. Elsie. She's a smaller van who worked with Toby and Henrietta. Normally she's shedded with the two. Eric and Ernest. Two different lads who work for the Coldie Fell, and that we don't know much about. They're probably like Coldie, but hopefully better at storytelling. Frank. He deserved better, and he knew it. Fred. Actually has a death battle with Alf every 200 years. This happens in deep space though, due to the damage it'd have on Earth. Fred Pelham. You know, he had a very cute wooden railway model. I would ingest that lead. The Furness Railway coaches. They are there. That's about the most we know. Gertrude and Millicent. Some of the only bogey coaches who work on the Skarloey. They're the only proper coaches by Sir Handel standards. Godred. Lost the fortnight match. Godred Croven. He was king of Sodor between 1045 and 1095. He also had a son called Godred MacHarold too. Gordon's brothers. We only really ever see one, that being the Flying Scotsman, but they are mentioned by Gordon. Green Arrow. A nice sort of engine that Thomas meets at the workshops of the NRM. They even double-head a train together. Helena. Another one of those FR coaches. Very unfortunate name. Irene. She's one of the coaches who survives at Bluebell with the engines. Iron Duke has a power level that's completely immeasurable, only helped by his mustache. He explains to Thomas the differences in the two's gauging, standard for Thomas and a much more broad one for Iron Duke. Isabel and Dulcie. They're Oliver's coaches. The two escaped scrap with him and honestly should have been in the TVS. Ivan Ferrier. He's a chief engineer at Arlesdale. He actually built Frank. Ivo Hugh. Works better in purple. Ivo's Flying Bedstead. A small petrol-driven trolley for the Skarloey Railway. We never see it, but it's definitely fun to imagine. Ginty and Pug. They picked up the slack Thomas and Percy left when the others visited the mainland. Ginty also helps Thomas out of an accident. Jock. He's sort of the best of all of the Arlesdale steam engines. Literally, their best parts put into a single unit, and I bet he gets a kick out of that. King James I, a large tender engine who worked with Duck back at Paddington. The LMS banana vans. They always look like they did something wrong. And probably did. Lord Baron. There's actually been at least two men named Lord Baron, serving as chairman of the Coldie Fell Railway. Mallard. He's pretty much Spencer, just not Spencer. They seem like they have similar attitudes. He was very popular at the NRM, alongside Thomas. The Midland Railway engines. These would visit the NWR on loan from the Midland and Furness. The Ministry of Defense engine. While we sadly never see him, this little dude was described as a Black Beetle-like engine used for shunting. Maybe something like this? Mr. Hugh. He's the foreman and chief mechanical engineer on the Skarloey. You can probably see where Ivo Hugh gets his name from. Neil. Neil deserved so much more. Mostly he's known for bringing Skarloey from the docks, but also did a lot to help Skarloey in his early days. Old King Cole. More exists in modeling, but is a private owner's truck at Farquhar. Also sounds like a Mario 64 boss. Patrick, yet another Coldie Fellboy. We actually know a bit more about this lad, too. At first, he was very similar to Godred, but after needing a mountain rescue, wised up very quickly. The Peel Godred engines. We know they're electric and that they're not well known. That's really their only two things. Alan Pegler. Not only the eccentric once actual owner of Scotsman, in the Railway series he actually brings Scotsman and Gordon together for a reunion, or helps Topham do such. Richard Robert Norramby, the current Earl of Sodor. The Scrapped Engines. Yeah, poor guys. Shane Doyney, another CFR native with a very fun name. He's hopefully cautious like the others. The Sigrid of Arlesdale. She's the only female locomotive on the Arlesdale Railway, and is described as one of the most reliable backups the entire railway has. 16. More famously known for going cab over wheels, less famously known for a crime spree that spanned 14 countries, Sodor Railway Repair. I don't know how to describe it. This guy just has a swagger to him. He keeps the railway going while we're focused on silly stories with steam engines. S&M 1 and 3, the two other engines who worked with Neil. Not much is known of these two, except for one being sold alongside Neil, and the other working himself to, well, literal death. Stanley. He's Smudger, basically, but with a better story and sadder conclusion. He dies in a mine flood when failing to pump it. Stevenson's Rocket, another Jim Thomas meets at the NRM. I don't think they ever speak though, since I don't know if can he even talk? Sun Cole, another private owner wagon used at Farquhar. The Trucks. Now, these are two different pieces of rolling stock at the Coldie Fell. They're used for goods and maintenance over anything else, and nothing like the troublesome trucks we're used to. The Austerity Engine. An engine that Topham was supposed to buy for the NWR, but I don't think he ever actually does. It was basically gonna be another Wilbert. The Dark Green Tank Engine. This little dude teases James about the bootlace thing. Apparently that's not just a little-known Sodor thing. The Highland Engines. As you probably expected, these engines worked the Highlands with Donald and Douglas. They often called them jocks, due to their yellow livery, which no doubt helped with our jock. The Works Diesel. This is the diesel who rescues James, and somehow manages to rid him of all of his diesel prejudices. Yeah, probably a nice guy. Toby's brothers. They worked with him back on the LNER. Victoria. She ends up restored to work on Thomas's branch line. War Department Diesels. While we don't have many specifics, during the Second World War, 2 diesels were loaned to the Skarloey Railway by the War Department. The Wellsworth and Suttery engines. Yeah, 3 different tank engines worked this apparently, but we never really meet them, so if a tree falls in the wood, Wilbert. You gotta know about Wilbert. He's one of the few Thomas characters that exists in real life, and was even renamed to such by the Reverend himself. And of course, before my voice completely dies out, the CFR ties us up one more time with another mountain engine. Now, Wilfred is known as the musical engine, since apparently he loves to blow his whistle. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been most of, pretty much, every RWS Only character and a single fact about them. Alright, I'm gonna go have a drink and take some medicine. I think my voice got progressively worse throughout this entire video. Don't we love allergies, ladies and gentlemen?
Either subscribe, donate, or get the fuck out.